Some mistakes don't ruin your life in an instant. They begin with laughter, with one careless sentence, one reckless joke spoken at the wrong time in the wrong room to the wrong people. And by the time you realize what you've done, the damage is already moving through everyone around you like a shockwave. What I said that night was supposed to be funny. Instead, it became the moment that shattered everything I thought I understood about friendship, boundaries, love, and the dangerous space between impulse and desire. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I had crossed a line that jokes were never meant to cross. It was one of those careless, stupid things you say when you're young, sitting on a couch with your best friend trying to be funny. But sometimes, a joke doesn't just echo in a room. It changes the direction of your life forever. My name is Ryan Carter, and 10 years ago, in a quiet neighborhood just outside Columbus, I learned that one reckless sentence could unravel everything I thought I understood about love, loyalty, and growing up. Back then, I was 22 and still trying to figure out who I was supposed to become. My life felt like a collection of unfinished plans. I worked part-time at a local auto repair shop, spending long hours under lifted trucks with grease on my hands and oil stains on my jeans. In the evenings, I attended classes at community college, telling myself I was building toward something better, even if I wasn't completely sure what that better looked like yet. Most days felt repetitive. Wake up, work, class, sleep, repeat. The one constant in my life, the thing that had never changed, was Marcus Bennett. Marcus had been my best friend since middle school. We had grown up together in the messy, uncomplicated way boys often do. We played basketball until sunset on cracked neighborhood courts. We survived terrible teachers, failed tests, breakups, bad haircuts, and all the awkward phases that come with growing up. We had spent so much time around each other that silence between us never felt uncomfortable. He was more like family than a friend. Marcus lived with his mother, Vanessa Bennett, in a modest brick house near the edge of town. It wasn't a big house, but it had warmth, the kind that came from routine, care, and someone who made sure a home actually felt lived in. His father had disappeared when Marcus was young, so for as long as I'd known him, it had always been just the two of them. Because of that, I spent countless weekends there. Movie nights, basketball games, late-night gaming, random conversations that stretched until 2 in the morning. Eventually, their house stopped feeling like Marcus's home and started feeling like mine too. And then there was Vanessa. Vanessa Bennett was the kind of woman people noticed the second she entered a room, not because she demanded attention, not because she dressed loudly or chased admiration. It was quieter than that. She carried herself with a calm confidence that made people naturally look her way. There was something grounded about her, something steady. She worked as a nurse at a local hospital, often pulling exhausting shifts that would leave most people drained and irritable. Yet somehow she still carried warmth with her. Even tired, she had this calming presence that softened the atmosphere around her. She had raised Marcus alone, paid bills alone, handled every crisis alone, and somehow still managed to smile. To me, she had always been just Marcus's mom. At least, that's what I told myself. Because if I was being honest, there were moments, small, fleeting moments, I caught myself noticing things I shouldn't. The way she laughed, the softness in her voice, the way she somehow looked graceful even after a 12-hour shift. I buried those thoughts every time they surfaced, because some thoughts aren't supposed to be entertained. Some lines aren't supposed to be crossed. And then came that Friday. It was early fall, one of those warm evenings where summer hadn't fully let go yet. Marcus and I were sprawled across the living room watching a game on TV. Pizza boxes covered the coffee table. Empty soda cans sat in uneven stacks beside them. The air smelled like pepperoni, cheese, and stale cola. Nothing important seemed to be happening. It felt like one of those ordinary nights you forget, the kind that shouldn't matter. Vanessa had just returned from work and walked through the living room on her way toward the kitchen. She was still wearing her navy blue scrubs. Her dark hair was loosely tied back, a few strands falling around her face. She looked tired, anyone could see that, but somehow still carried herself with effortless grace. Even exhausted, she had presence. The room felt quieter when she entered, calmer. Marcus glanced at her and made some sarcastic comment about how she was still dressed for work, teasing her the way sons do when comfort makes them careless. And then I made the mistake. No pause. No filter, no thought. I laughed and said something that changed everything. I joked that his mom was hotter than most of the girls I had dated. Silence. Complete silence. The TV still played in the background, commentators talking about a game neither of us heard anymore. Marcus slowly turned toward me. The expression on his face hit me instantly. Shock. Disbelief. Offense, like I had just insulted generations of his family in a single sentence. My stomach dropped. That awful sinking feeling came fast. The one where your brain replays your own words and realizes how unbelievably stupid they sounded once they were no longer inside your head. I forced out an awkward laugh, too loud, too fake. I tried to wave it off. That came out wrong. But the damage was done. Then movement in the doorway made both of us freeze. Vanessa had stopped walking. She turned and looked directly at me. I expected anger, embarrassment, disgust. Instead, what I saw confused me. Curiosity. That was the only word for it. She studied me with an expression I couldn't read. Not offended, not flustered, almost interested. Then she spoke, and everything changed. She asked if I wanted to go out with her. At first I thought she was joking. Marcus laughed nervously, assuming the same thing. But Vanessa didn't laugh. She simply looked at me and said she was serious. The moment stretched into an uncomfortable silence that felt like it lasted forever. I could feel Marcus staring at me, waiting for me to say something that would restore normal reality. But nothing about that moment felt normal anymore. I stammered something about how I had only been joking, how I didn't mean anything by it. Vanessa smiled faintly, shrugged, and said that sometimes jokes reveal more truth than people realize. Then she walked down the hallway toward her room, leaving Marcus and me sitting in stunned silence. For the rest of the night, Marcus barely spoke to me, and honestly, I didn't blame him. But something strange happened after that night. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. At first it was confusion, then curiosity, and eventually something deeper that I didn't want to admit. Vanessa wasn't just Marcus's mom. She was a woman who had lived an entire life full of struggles I didn't understand yet. A woman who had raised a son alone, worked long hospital shifts, and somehow remained kind and composed. Over the next few weeks, I found myself visiting Marcus's house less often, partly out of guilt and partly because I didn't know how to act around either of them anymore. But one evening, while picking up a tool I had accidentally left behind, I ran into Vanessa outside the house as she was watering the small garden near the porch. We ended up talking. At first it was casual, about work, about school, about life in general. But the conversation slowly drifted into deeper places. She told me how lonely life could feel after years of focusing entirely on raising a child. She talked about dreams she had pushed aside, and how strange it felt watching Marcus grow into an adult. I listened in a way I had never really listened before. For the first time, I wasn't seeing her as my friend's mother. I was seeing her as a person. Over the next month, those brief conversations happened again and again. Sometimes it was 5 minutes, sometimes 20. We never mentioned the joke again, but the tension lingered quietly beneath every conversation. Until one evening when she finally said something that made my heart race. She told me that life didn't follow simple rules about age or expectations. Sometimes people meet each other at unexpected moments. She said that if I ever truly meant what I joked about that night, I should be honest with myself. Then she walked back into the house. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about Marcus, about loyalty, about the invisible boundaries friendships create. But I also kept thinking about Vanessa's eyes when she spoke, calm, thoughtful, and strangely hopeful. A week later, I asked Marcus if we could talk. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. I told him that inappropriate had happened, that I respected him and valued our friendship more than anything. But I also admitted something that shocked even me. I told him I might have feelings for his mom. Marcus reacted exactly the way you would expect. He was furious. For a long time he refused to speak to me. Weeks turned into months where the friendship we had built over years seemed to vanish completely. It was the lowest point of my life. I questioned everything. My choices, my intentions, and whether some lines in life should simply never be crossed. During that time, Vanessa and I barely spoke either. She didn't want to damage Marcus's relationship with me any further, but something unexpected slowly began to happen. Marcus started noticing how lonely his mom really was. He saw the quiet evenings she spent alone after work, the way she tried to hide her exhaustion, and how much of her life had been dedicated entirely to him. One evening nearly 6 months later, Marcus called me. His voice sounded calmer than I expected. He told me something that still stays with me today. He said that if I ever hurt his mother, he would never forgive me. But if I truly cared about her, then maybe life was more complicated than he wanted it to be. A year later, Vanessa and I went on our first official date. It wasn't dramatic or glamorous. We simply had dinner at a quiet restaurant in Cleveland, talking for hours about everything from childhood memories to the strange twists life throws at people. It felt real. And sometimes real love doesn't look the way people expect. Now, before we reach the end of this story, I have a small request for you watching this video. If you've ever experienced a moment where life surprised you, where a simple moment changed everything, write the word unexpected in the comments. Because sometimes the most powerful stories begin with the things we never planned. Today, 10 years later, Marcus and I are still close friends. Our journey wasn't easy. There were arguments, awkward holidays, and many moments where we questioned whether we had made the right choices. But time has a way of softening the hardest edges. Marcus eventually realized something important. Love doesn't follow neat rules. It grows in strange places, during unexpected conversations, and sometimes even after the most embarrassing jokes imaginable. Vanessa and I are married now, and every once in a while, when the three of us sit together laughing about old memories, Marcus reminds me of the night everything began. The night I said the dumbest joke of my life, the night that changed everything. And if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, comment, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the most unexpected moments lead to the most meaningful lives.